Hello and welcome to your Newsmax Daily for Memorial Day Monday, May 26, 2025. It's the 21st Monday of the year. Hope yours is going well. Take a moment, if you haven't already, to remember those that made the ultimate sacrifice, what today is all about, and their families as well, as you are hopefully enjoying an extra long holiday weekend with your family and friends. The family of Duck Dynasty star Phil Robertson and fans everywhere are remembering the reality TV star today. Robertson, who had been dealing with multiple health issues, passed away yesterday at 79. The financial markets and most everything else, except retail, of course, are closed today in observance of Memorial Day. The European stock markets popped overnight after President Trump said he spoke with the president of the EU and was okay with delaying the increased tariffs.
July 9th would be the date. That was the date she requested. Could we move it from June 1st to July 9th? And I agreed to do that. And that she said we will rapidly get together and see if we can work something out.
That is one of the big stories today. Trump spoke with reporters as he returned to the White House last night from his New Jersey golf resort, and he was really worked up about the weekend attacks from Russia in Ukraine.
I'm not happy with what Putin's doing. He's killing a lot of people, and I don't know what the hell happened to Putin. I've known him a long time, always gotten along with him, but he's sending rockets into cities and killing people, and I don't like it at all, okay?
President, what do you want to do about that?
I'm surprised. I'm very surprised. We'll see what we're going to do. What am I going to tell you? You're the fake news, aren't you? You're totally fake.
Ukraine says it was one of the largest attacks since the beginning of the war, which is more than 3 years ago. At least 19 people were killed, including 3 children. There is also word today of Israeli strikes in Gaza. Here at home, President Trump is marking Memorial Day at Arlington National Cemetery for the annual laying of the wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier. You may remember the president and Vice President Vance both participated in a wreath-laying ceremony at Arlington National back in January as part of the inauguration events. Let's start with Secretary of Veteran Affairs, former Georgia Congressman Doug Collins on Newsmax's Wake Up America.
It's always great having you on our show. Thank you so much for taking the time. So, as we know, this is a somber holiday. This is not one we celebrate. This is one we observe and one that takes reflection. What do you want Americans to remember and think of this Memorial Day?
Well, I want them to think of everything that they get to do this weekend across the country, spending time with their families, spending time doing the events that they will have. But I also want them to remember that there's a reason that they're able to do that. And it's when they pass by one of our cemeteries, they pass by one of those areas that are remembrance or something that's going on. I want them to remember that it is those who gave their life, their sacrifice for our country. This is a time in which we remember them. This is something that is a very bedrock on a country in which we believe. And also remember, and I think this is something even though we think now we're past the Iraq and Afghanistan conflicts and the other things, we still lose our service members in conflict. And there are many members of families right now that are still sitting with, that are going to gather this weekend with a missing person at a chair or a table or on that boat ride that they used to take because their loved one did not come home. And I think that's something we need to remember.
Yeah, Mr. Secretary, I mean, I remember 4 years ago when former Vice President Kamala Harris tweeted out this being a long weekend. And we know it's obviously so much more than that. And now Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth is ordering a new review of the U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan. I mean, it was because of that botched plan that we have 13 more people to be honoring and remembering this Memorial Day weekend. The withdrawal is seen as one of the largest failures in military history. I mean, what do you think of the investigation, and what kind of answers do you want on behalf of those service members who were killed?
I think that is I think that was frankly, and Mark, you and I have talked about this a little bit before. I think that was the beginning of the end for the Biden administration in many ways, because it just showed a complete lack of understanding, a complete lack of respect, I think, for our military. I'm glad to see that the Secretary of Defense is doing that. But it's not just that happened there at the airport at Abbey Gate. It's also the whole lead up to it, in which there were people on both sides of the political spectrum saying, don't do this, don't do this. This is not the right way to do this. And yet They continued on because they had set, unfortunately, what appears to be a political deadline of September the 11th to get people out and to do it early and to claim a political victory. Let me just remind everyone out there, this is, I don't care what administration's in, our military service members are not political pawns. They are the ones who stand at the tip of the spear at the world, because the world looks to us because of the leadership we have, and our military is the best in the world, and we have given our sons and daughters around the globe, and that is what we remember this weekend. We're not anything else but the best fighting force in the world, and yes, this is a weekend in which we remember those who gave their life.
Veteran and VA Secretary Doug Collins on Wake Up America with Charlotte McBride and Mark Lotter. Tom Basile, host of America Right Now, had a fantastic Memorial Day segment on his show as well.
We are so fortunate to live in a time when the death of an American service member is a rare national tragedy. Unlike generations past, few of us today know someone who died in battle. You know, there was a time not that long ago when it wasn't uncommon for one or more of the boys down the street to go off to war, never to return. You know, it seems so silly and so foolish. We have Pride Month and Asian Pacific Islander Month and this month or that month, but only Memorial Day. You know, I'm sure you would agree that every day should be Memorial Day, but we've largely grown accustomed to relative peace, and what it takes to keep this nation safe and free is often not top of mind. Our enemies are often no longer conquering armies, but unseen networks and shadowy threats. This weekend, there will be memorial services and wreath layings. There will be visitors to monuments and the reading of names on a wall. Family members will remember, and there will be the wondering about those men and women we've never met who gave their last full measure of devotion so that America and the world could counter Nazi hate, communist oppression, Islamic terrorism, and more. There will be prayers and songs and flags and aging veterans missing the buddy who gave his life for us all. But there are ways that we can honor their sacrifice as Americans every day. We can honor them by loving America and each other a little more in these times of sharp political divisions. We are surrounded by so much ugliness today. Anyone who has spent any amount of time on so-called social media knows how soul-sapping the experience can be. The anger, the envy, the chaos, the clickbait. Turn it off. Don't play along. Don't take the bait to start the pointless argument with the troll online. If the left in this country is going to scream and yell and be hateful and violent, be triggered by the American flag, don't lower yourself to that level. Remember, just as the terrorist wants you to be afraid, the leftist wants you to be miserable. But America is beautiful. It is full of beautiful places and amazing people. Embrace them, experience them, explore America, explore your state, engage with your community. Every day, find something that fills your life with beauty. Turn off the chaos and the yelling and the protest, and focus on the positive, on those blessings of liberty. That is the legacy of those who died for us. They loved this country, and we owe it to them not to be dragged down to the level of those who oppose the American way of life. Here's another one. Be in the moment more. I can't tell you how many times I go to an event and people are so addicted to their phone, they actually watch the event while holding it up. If you're looking at a screen, you're not fully in the moment. You're not really living. Take some of the joy and some of the emotion out of it. Enjoy and love the American experience by trading 2 dimensions for 3 again. By, to the extent that you can, throw off the chains of technology and live again. You're going to be happier. Our heroes wanted us to live free and happy.
That is Tom Basile, host of America Right Now, Saturday mornings at 9 on Newsmax, 9 Eastern. Tom also spoke about mental health with Dr. Drew Pinsky.
Billions of Americans suffering, often in silence. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and according to the National Alliance on Mental Illness, 1 in 5 American adults experience mental illness each year. Millions and millions of others have chronic conditions as well. So how can we better manage our mental health as part of making America healthy again. Here with us to discuss, globally recognized addiction medicine specialist, Dr. Drew Pinsky. Dr. Drew, great to see you again. Thank you for making time for us. You know, there was a time when talking about mental health was sort of taboo. We didn't do it. So we are making a little bit of progress in the sense that we are talking about it more, but it does seem to be getting worse. Studies showing that even 1 in 6 U.S. children are age 6 to 17. They're experiencing a mental health episode every year. We hear so much about anxiety and depression rates rising. Why are we seeing the increases that we're seeing, Doctor?
Well, I mean, you packed a lot into that question, so let me deal with the last part first. Why are we seeing increases? I think there's a series of reasons, in my humble opinion. One is we are both over-treating and under-treating people, and so people that really need help are not getting it, and people that really are just under the sort of the umbrella of ordinary misery are giving maybe too much treatment. We have taught kids that the way to manage stress, the way to manage discomfort is to avoid it and go to a safe place, which is anathema to what we should be doing, which is leaning into it and developing resiliency and grit and self-efficacy. So we are not doing that. At the same time, we are in massive denial about the nature of adverse childhood experiences. Divorce is an adverse childhood experience. Having a parent or a family member with a substance problem is an adverse childhood experience. Having someone involved with the legal system is an adverse childhood experience. It doesn't have to be overt abuse, but if you have 2 or 3 of these, your risk of serious mental illness or certainly depression, anxiety goes way, way up. And we have been in a great deal of denial about this. At the same time, we are in a spiritual vacuum. Our families are unhealthy. Our nutrition, you saw the MAHA meeting recently, where they pointing out how much our nutrition and chemical exposure is affecting our mental health. Yes, yes, and yes. It's any wonder that we have trouble right now.
Doctor, what are some of the warning signs that you or a loved one has some mental health challenges that perhaps need to be addressed?
Well, it depends what age group we're talking about. Most people are talking about adolescence. What you have on the screen here is for adults. If there's a change in their sleep pattern, a change in their eating patterns, if they're having strange thoughts, if they're having trouble, really the dividing line between somebody who's in trouble and somebody who just has the blues or what you would call ordinary misery, which is a good thing. Somebody who's having trouble functioning. If you have difficulty with work or relationships or your health is suffering, then you have something that requires attention, and that's the threshold you should cross. Now, also, the good news is we live in a time when people are finally beginning to understand the brain is just another organ, like the pancreas, like the stomach, and it gets sick just like every other organ. It's a special organ. Yes, our self is embedded in it. Our bodily, our social experiences are embedded in it. But as an organ, it gets sick like any other organ. And the good news is we have Zoom available these days. We have internet, digital access to healthcare that I was very skeptical about when this got going, that is turning out to be very useful.
Yeah, you mentioned this reinvigorated push to make America healthy again from the Trump administration, and a lot of it has to do, at least to what we talked about so far, with food. Talk to us about that link between nutrition and good mental health.
Well, the brain is embedded in a body. And so the body's health, the brain health, they are the same thing. And particularly if you are obese or you're having trouble sleeping or you are, involved with foods that are not nutritious, it affects our brain functioning. And things like seed oils, think like highly processed food, chemicals in the environment, of course. And we don't even really know yet the full impact of that. And by the way, sedentary lifestyle. I mean, how many years have we been preaching that people need to exercise? The reality is when it comes to conditions like depression, exercise and listening to classical music measures up favorably against all these pharmaceutical agents we're throwing at people.
Dr. Drew on America Right Now this past Saturday with Tom Basile. If you missed Dr. Drew discussing President Biden's prostate cancer diagnosis on the Newsmax Daily last week, Tom Basile asked him about that as well.
Americans still asking a lot of questions about how former President Joe Biden's prostate cancer diagnosis went under the radar for so long.
Yep.
You're a prostate cancer survivor.
Yes.
Given the health care that Biden had, given his age, both civilian and military medical care, physicals at Walter Reed, how do you think this went down? How do you think this actually happened?
So people understand my ability to comment on this. I've been treating prostate cancer for 40 years. I had prostate cancer. I've had a prostatectomy and radiation, and I'm on the board of the Prostate Cancer Foundation. We fund very exceptional research throughout the world. So I'm extremely familiar with this. There was some controversy about the regular screening with PSAs, blood tests, of men over the age of 70 or 75. His physician, who is interposed, he's brought his own personal physician who sat between the patient, President Biden, and Walter Reed, and the finest physicians in the world. And it seems to me, this guy's been subpoenaed now to come before Congress, so we'll find out more details. He elected not to do PSAs on President Biden. Look at the outcome. Every man over 50, every man over 40 with a first-degree relative with prostate cancer should be getting this every year, nonstop. Look at the outcome. How do you think this turned out? The idea that they were doing maybe digital rectal exams, they found a nodule. This is old-fashioned stuff. And lo and behold, it's metastatic disease. It's sort of, my friend Adam Carolla distills it down to a simple paradigm: stupid or liar, one or the other, or both possibly. Either was bad medicine or they're distorting the truth. And given the obfuscation that has come out of that administration the last 4 years, it's hard to believe anything. And this situation defies an understanding. I would have imagined he'd been at least diagnosed 3 or 4 years ago. That's usually what happens when somebody has metastatic disease. But hopefully we'll find out more.
Wow. Stupid or lying, or maybe both. Dr. Drew Pinsky on Newsmax. Who would have imagined that President Biden was diagnosed 3 or 4 years ago? And as he mentioned, the House Oversight Committee is hoping to speak with President Biden's doctor, Kevin O'Connor. The Biden White House, in the last Congress, the Biden White House, the one that campaigned on being the most transparent administration in history, prevented the Oversight Committee and Chairman Comer from speaking with his doctors, and even from speaking with 3 White House aides that were subpoenaed by the committee. Now the investigation into the cover-up of Biden's mental health is also going to include his physical health. It's all going to take longer than you would like it to take, just like the Hunter Biden investigation, but it is happening. For more on the Democrats and Biden, we go to Lidia Curanaj.
So now as President Trump works to right the many wrongs done by Biden's presidency, the arsonists are now trying to put out the fire while making money off of it.
I think the degree to which the team around President Biden was hiding him and sequestering him, mainly starting in the fall of 2023, cannot be overstated. There's a cabinet meeting in October 2023, and then several cabinet members told us for the book they never saw him again in person for months and months and months. He was kept away from them, and cabinet secretaries we spoke to for the book told us it was weird. One of them did have a meeting with Biden in between that last cabinet meeting of 2023 in October and the debate, and described him as being disoriented and out of it. And I think the degree to which he was being hidden from even their own administration cannot be overstated.
Oh, wow. They've got some nerve. We've been calling it for how long? Look at the video there, right? They said it was cheap fakes. We called it Basement Biden. How many times did you hear me and almost every single other anchor on this network say, look what's going on with Joe Biden? You could have seen the red flags of Biden's mental decline from space. And the biggest culprit, the biggest co-conspirator in this massive scam was Joe Biden's wife, Dr. Jill, who had the audacity to parade her stage 4 cancer-ridden husband on The View just days ago. And here was his response when he was asked about his mental competency.
You know, think of what we were left with. We were left with a circumstance where we had an insurrection when I started. We did not sense a civil war. We had a circumstance where we were in a position that the pandemic, because of the incompetence of the last outfit.
Incompetence, really? You should be the one talking, Joe. I mean, the White House knew Joe Biden could barely dress himself. They either hid him from the medical doctors, right? Or they knew Joe was sick with cancer and dementia and did nothing about it in order to maintain power at all costs. Here's respected Dr. Zeke Emanuel on MSNBC.
This is not speculation. If you have prostate cancer that is spread to the bone, then he's most certainly, you were saying, had it when he was president of the United States.
Oh, yeah. He did not develop it in the last 100, 200 days. He had it while he was president. He probably had it at the start of his presidency in 2021. Yes, that I don't think there's any disagreement about that.
You know, here's what I think. In the Biden administration's sick, twisted minds, right, they were sacrificing Joe for the greater good for this woman. To have a woman of color as president, a.k.a. DEI hire Kamala Harris. The Biden campaign team became so cult-like that not a single person even leaked the fact that Biden, he became so incapacitated that they even had to scrap a multi-million-dollar fake town hall.
This fake town hall was in order to film it so they could make it into campaign commercials. They filmed it in Delaware with supporters. But Joe Biden, at this point, this is the spring of 2024, Joe Biden's town hall, which was closed to press, was so bad that campaign officials determined that it was not usable for a campaign commercial. So they took 90 minutes, 2 hours out of the president's day. They filmed an entire town hall, and they determined that it was not usable.
How dare this Axios reporter, along with Jake Tapper, now write this old tell-all book about how incapacitated Joe was. They should be on the unemployment line, not be lauded for literally trying to rewrite history and act like, oh, we just made a mistake here.
That's Lidia Curanaj on Sunday Agenda. So Jake Tapper, in his book, did give credit to our James Rosen for being the first one to ask President Biden directly to his face about his mental health, as you heard on Friday's Newsmax Daily. If you did not hear that, or you didn't see the interview with James and Greg Kelly, you must listen to Friday's podcast or go back and watch Thursday night's edition of Greg Kelly Reports. Tapper is also giving Laura Trump credit after he played down her comments on his show about a year ago or so. But it's all in an effort to sell books, right? It's all too little, too late, as Lydia said. And as you know, President Trump delivered the commencement speech at West Point on Saturday. Some of these same people, some of the same Democrats that were protecting Biden and some in the media are now criticizing President Trump's speech and also criticizing the president for wearing a hat. If you missed it, it was outside, of course. It was sunny. The president wore a MAGA hat. And that's where we are now, that they're making a big deal about the president's hat. Biden wore his aviator sunglasses when he spoke at West Point. Trump wore a hat. Democrats saying it was classless and embarrassing. Need I remind you that President Biden tripped and fell and looked like a frail old man at the Air Force Academy graduation ceremony, where he also was wearing his aviator shades. And they are criticizing President Trump for wearing a hat at West Point. I know it's completely different. I don't want anybody to, think I'm putting these two together. But for the record, every cadet that was graduating is also wearing a hat, right? I mean, it's part of the uniform. All right, the one big, beautiful bill heads to the Senate this week. Tomorrow, when everyone gets back to work, that will be the big backdrop of much of the news out of Washington throughout the week. And next week, and next week, and next week. Trump encouraging the Senate to get it done quickly like the House.
I think they're going to have changes. Some will be minor and some will be, fairly significant. John Thune and Mike Johnson have done a fantastic job. They've been working together all the way up, so hopefully that'll be fine.
The U.S. stock markets reopen tomorrow. Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, which really never stop trading, are all higher today. Bitcoin is back up to $110,000 or so. You can keep up with all of the news today on Newsmax, N2, and at Newsmax.com, of course. Don't forget about Newsmax.com for breaking news. I'm not sure who is in and who is out, but catch Rob Schmidt tonight, Finnerty, Greg Kelly, Chris Plant, and the Right Squad, and much more. I'm Tony Marino. Enjoy the rest of your day. If you do work in retail, you're likely working today. And if you're a cop, a firefighter, paramedic, nurse, hospital staffer, broadcaster, you're likely working. Thank you all for doing what you do. Be safe and keep on fighting the good fight.
News breaks every minute, every day. You need the app, the Newsmax app. Find it free on your smartphone store. Then watch us anytime, anywhere.
Information. Truth. Is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.